Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we are going to be talking specifically about how do you gather enough votes to actually win the general election in 2020? Because there is some serious confusion on this issue, okay? So we're going to look at this from a 30,000 foot level. We're going to break it down, and we're going to talk about who you need to actually get to win the 2020 election. All right, so the reason we're talking about this today is David Doel on Rational National. So David Doel is a political commentator. He is on Rational National, and I like his analysis. I like his breakdowns. He's very pro Bernie. Actually, I think he's smart. I don't agree with almost anything he says. I think he's going in the wrong direction on quite a few things. But his analysis comes from a genuine place. I think it's independent, like it's his own real opinions and ideas. That is seriously not always the case for different political commentators, and he's bringing a very serious level of intelligence to the conversation, and so I think that's really genuine. I like it, right? So David Doel, smart guy. I disagree with him, but he said something that I think is fundamentally wrong, and I'm going to call it out right now because I can't believe there's still this much confusion over this issue among political commentators, right? It's very clear that people did not learn the lessons from 2016. All right, so here's what David Doel said. He said, okay, listen, you do not need to win Trump voters to win 2020, okay? Any Democrat candidate can get the Dems, right? That's going to be the easiest part because they are a Dem and they're trying to get Dems to vote for him. I get that, right? And then he said, you need non-voters and independents, right? And you don't need Republicans. You don't need Trump voters, right? All right, so one, I really liked his breakdown. As soon as I heard this, I was like, oh, hey, yeah, that's good. 30,000 foot level, every single voter every single possible American voter for the 2020 election falls into four camps, right? They're Democrat, or they are Republican, or they are a non-voter. I think it's really, really smart that he's identifying non-voters because they are a critical aspect to what's going on today, and it's important that we talk about them, all right? So you got non-voters, right? And then you have independents, all right? So I'm actually going to talk about non-voters second. I want to talk about independents first. Independents do not matter, right? And the reason why is they are two reasons. They are an incredibly small group. There are incredibly few people who are not one of the other three, who are not non-voters, okay, who are not Democrats and not Republicans. What's left for independents, you got libertarians and like Green Party and a bunch of others, which I know, like, we're lumping them in with the independents, right? People who are not bound to the big two, right? Blue or red, right? I will just color all the rest of them as independent, even though I know independent is a specific party. Like, we're talking about 30,000 foot level, so independent. So the Greens, the Libertarians, it's such an incredibly small slice. It is so I doubt it's even 3% of the country, right? And the reality is, you never meet them, you never talk to them, right? They're incredibly rare, and the reason why is generally, so one, they're incredibly small, right? So I think you can ignore them because they're such a small number. I don't even think they're 3%. I don't think they're 3% of people who are willing to vote, okay? So I think you take them off the board because they're a distraction, right? The other reason why you don't really need to care about independents is I think independents are fundamentally indecisive people who are just don't like to decide, right? And they waffle, right? So even if you win them over, they're so indecisive they can pop out at the last minute, right? So the time and money and energy and focus you invest in getting independence, it's like you're investing a resource into something that you don't really. It's like trying to get a cat to do something, right? It's not going to be helpful. It's not useful, right? So and then last, I'll give you one more reason, right? You know why I think independents absolutely don't matter? You know who's a really smart politician who's got a good head on his shoulders? Bernie Sanders, right? Bernie Sanders is an independent. And he's like, oh, no, you can't get independents to vote you in. No way. That's why I'm running as a Democrat, right? I know that independents are I'm an independent, and I don't even I know they're not reliable. That's why I'm not running with them, right? I'm actually running, I'm masquerading as a Democrat so that I'll have a chance when I'm actually an independent, right? Independents firmly should be ignored. They take them off the board, right? And the reason why is it's such a small it's such a small group, and it's so hard to win them all the way through that it's a waste of time and energy, right? So take the independents, you could chuck them, right? They don't matter for the 2020 election, right? Because they're going to waffle until the very last minute, and then some are going to go here, some are going to go there. It's literally like herding cats, right? So just take them off the board. All right, don't spend resources on them. We love them, they're Americans, we respect them, all that. We want them to vote, blah, 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 right? But for winning the election, do not spend resources on them, right? They're indecisive people. All right, so let's keep it moving. All right, let's talk about non-voters. This is brilliant. This is one of the most smartest things that David Dole talked about, is just identifying non-voters. There are a lot of non-voters. There are a serious number of non-voters, right? And he's saying, hey, the Democrats should not be trying to win Trump voters, Republicans. We're gonna say those two are synonymous for this discussion. I know there's some nuance there, but again, we're at the 30,000 foot level, okay? All right. So here's the thing. He's saying non-voters, we as a Democrats should get them to vote, right? That is 100% wrong, okay? So I'm going to skip, I'm not going to bury the lead here. Whoever wins, right, this election, and it's going to be Andrew Yang, right? Whatever Democrat wins this election, they have got to win 5 to 15% of Donald Trump's voters, period. If a candidate cannot win 5% of Donald Trump's voters by election day in November of 2020, then that's it. That's all she wrote. They're done. It ain't going any further. It ain't gonna work, right? That is a non-starter. You have got to win Trump voters. Let's talk about non-voters. You cannot absolutely cannot rely on non-voters. Here's why. There's some reasons for not voting. Okay, some people in America get into trouble, right? And they get into trouble with the law. It might be a minor abrasion with the law. It might be a major problem with the law, right? But once you've tussled with the law a time or two, right, you are very hesitant to register for anything, right? Because if you get on lists, then basically people are going to come at you for things that they want you to be responsible for, right? And when you have had some skirmishes with the law, some back and forth with the law, when you've been in that system, right, you are in a situation where you are incredibly hesitant to get on lists, right, and to be dealing with officials of any type. Now, I want to be super clear here. I think that is the reality of how many people who have had tussles with the law, inexperience with the law, been on the side of being charged with X, Y, or Z, right? Now, they should feel 100% safe in their voting rights, right? It is absolutely wrong that they should feel that they can't vote, right? They should feel 100% safe in their vote, right? So all of that, right? They should really feel very comfortable about voting, and the government should 100%, assure them, hey, come on out and vote. Even if you've had this or that happen with the law in the past, your vote is private. It's okay, right? But the reality is, even though it should be that way, and it is that way, it is safe for them to vote, perception for many people is far more important than reality. And I think many people who have had, a tussle here or a skirmish there with the law at some point in their past, they are incredibly hesitant to register for anything official, right? And I think that's understandable. I think it's a terrible reality. I think all Americans should feel 100% safe in voting, but I think understanding that the perception that it might not be safe, I fully understand that perception, right? And so I think there's a significant number of non-voters who are like, hey, I got parking tickets, right? I got XY, I have things I owe. I owe people, right? And I don't want the system getting another ping on who and where I am, right? That kind of thing, right? And so it can be seen, like I listened to a biography, right? Ron Perlman. Ron Perlman played Hellboy, right? He has a great biography, by the way. I highly recommend listening to it. He's got such a great voice too. It's a joy to listen to. So Ron Perlman, he was in The Name of the Rose, and he was in Sons of Anarchy. He's an incredibly good actor, right? He had parking tickets for like 15 years, right, in New York. He couldn't even go. He went out to California, right? He needed to come back to New York to do some jobs. He had to have a friend pay thousands of dollars, right, for parking tickets, right? When you got that hanging over your head, you might have a perception that you don't want to get on the grid, right? You don't want to be calling attention to yourself to officials, right? It's totally wrong, right? Ron Perlman should have, at all points should have said, hey, I'm an American citizen, I vote or whatever. But if you owe like a city like 15 grand, for something like that, you might really be hesitant to actually come and vote, right? So here's the thing, right? How are you as a Democrat going to rely to win on that subsection of non-voters and assure them that they're going to be able to vote safely, right? Because actually, that's the issue, right? That is going to be incredibly difficult for you to come and assure them that safety is going to be there, especially when you're not in power yet, right? And if they vote and you don't get in power and the other side gets in power, how are you assuring them safety from the other side, right? So those people have this perception so I think not all. I think there's plenty of people who have tussles with, there are some people who had tussles with the law, and they're like, yeah, I'm still going to vote, right? But some, I think they have this perception, right? And it keeps them from voting. And boy, I'll tell you right now, as a Democrat, man, if you're like, oh, I'm going to eschew getting Trump voters, convincing Trump voters to vote for me, and I'm going to rely on independents and non-voters, are you kidding? Right? Like, absolutely not. That is not. So, especially on this perception of tussles with the law, getting you on the grid again, pinging the system of where you are and who you are, that frightens people, right? They're 100% wrong. They should absolutely feel safe in voting, but I understand that perception, right? I have some of my own perceptions, like just weird things that I believe that I know, right, that the facts don't match with my perception, but superstition is a thing. Like, all kind of people believe, but perception is a very real motivator, right? So the idea that Democrats are going to rely on making these people feel safe, that seems like not a good deal. It's going to be not a good idea. It's going to be incredibly difficult. They can do it. They can go down that road, right? But again, the resources that you're going to spend to get people in that position to believe you over pairing off like 5 to 15% of the least connected voters from Trump, I don't think that's a good use of resources. Let's talk more, and this is a much bigger group, okay? There's a recent statistic that 4 out of 5 young people, 18 to 25, do not vote, right? Now, why is that, right? Well, I can tell you, right? This is a reason, not the only reason. It's a reason. And this is young people and a bunch of other non-voters. A lot of non-voters are young people right now, right? It's like in our nation, young people don't vote at the macro level, and old people vote like crazy at the macro level. Like, it's like almost a 1-to-1 overlap for old voters. Like, if you're old, you vote, period. If you're young, you don't care about voting that much. And the reality is the Democrats thinking they're going to switch that for this election when they've thought they were going to switch that for every other election, right? Forget it. It's just not going to happen. But let's talk about it, okay? Why do young people and a whole bunch of other people not vote? Here's why. And it's going to seem trivial. It's not trivial, right? Let's talk about it. Here it is. Voting is not cool. Voting is not cool. Voting is not cool. All right. Anything you got to register for, that you fill out a form for, it ain't cool, right? It's regulated. It's scheduled, right? And it deals with official people who wear lapels, right? Like, it is not cool, right? So, and here's the kicker. A lot of young people and a lot of Americans care a lot about being cool, right? There's an entire industry I'm a sneakerhead. I love sneakers, right? Now, I'm a poor sneakerhead. I have 4 kids going to college. I would really love to own Staple Pigeons and Adidas, and Yeezy is done, but when they were hot, I wanted Yeezys, right? I would love to have an Air Jordan collection. I don't, and the reason, the closest I come is I got a really dope pair of Vans, all black Vans with the stripe. It's pretty nice, right? But it's sad, right? My sneakerhead collection is sad. And the reason why is I just can't spend $300, $600, $1,200 for sneakers because I got 4 kids. One is done college, one's in college, and I got 2 others coming into college. So as much as I would love to be a sneakerhead, I can't be. But I watch a show called Complex, right? Complex is a show all about buying sneakers, right? And I'm talking like people walk in, they drop $2,000, $4,000, $6,000 in a shopping spree on Complex, right? And it is literally a show just about going into a shoe store and buying sneakers. You know why they're spending $2,000, $4,000, $6,000? To be cool. Americans care about being cool. Young people care about being cool. And guess what? There's about nothing less cool than voting, right? Anything where you put a sticker on your shirt, that ain't cool, right? Like, right? And see, and it's a big, big thing. And I'm not, now you got to be really, I want to be super clear here. I'm not saying that voting, that no one should think voting is cool. I'm saying this is the reality. This is the perception. People don't think voting is cool. And frankly, they're right. It's not cool. It's scheduled. It's, it's routine. You got to make sure you got to put it on your calendar, right? What's cool, right? A Kawasaki motorcycle going 70 miles an hour, like down the highway, right? With a custom painted helmet that matches your bike. That's cool, right? And ain't nobody scheduled when you're going out for that ride, right? And I'll even put it down to 55. Even going 55, you look cool on that motorcycle, right? But motorcycles are incredibly impractical, right? They're expensive. They're dangerous. They are insanely dangerous, right? And so basically, the more dangerous is something, the more impractical it is, the cooler it is. That's why Staple Pigeons, which were incredibly expensive, sneakers that you gotta get in line to get, it's impractical, right? It's dangerous to your job to sit in line for sneakers that are coming out at one particular time, right? If something is impractical and dangerous, it's cool. Guess what? Voting is not impractical or dangerous. It's incredibly practical, and it's the safest thing you can do. It ain't cool. And this is big, right? I don't care who you are. You could be Amy Klobuchar. You could be Elizabeth Warren. You could be Cory Booker. You could be Andrew Yang. You could be Joe Biden. You ain't gonna make voting cool, period, right? And that's the kicker, is there are a ton of Americans who care way more about being cool than they do about civic duty, about their civil duty, right? And that's just it. And the reason why I'm bringing a harsh word today, right? I don't like saying any of this, but my point is, when I heard, David Dole talking about, you can get this job done, you can win the presidency with Dem votes and with Dem votes, non-voter votes, which you converted, right? And then independents, and you don't need to win Trump votes? Are you out of your mind? This is so clearly wrong. This is so clearly the lesson we absolutely learned from 2016. Is Hillary did this like crazy. She ignored entire states that she, like heartland states, she didn't want to go to, right? She ignored strong red states, right? She ignored Howard Stern listeners, and then right near the end, right, all the conservatives, she called them a basket of deplorables, right? And she did not get any Trump voters, and she lost, right? And frankly, I think a ton of as many non-voters as you could get to vote, she got, right? As many independents as you could get to vote, she got. And then she got all the Dems. And guess what? Those were not enough to come and beat Trump 4 years ago, when he is way less powerful at the polls, at the voting polls, not the polls, like at the voting booths. He was way less powerful than he's going to be. He's going to come like a beast in 2020. You have got to pare 5 to 15% of the numbers off of Trump to beat him, right? Now, how do you do that, right? Well, you can do that, and here's the kicker, right? I don't want to see any Dem win, but Andrew Yang. So this information is just for Andrew Yang, right? All right. So how do you beat Trump, right? Well, you got to pare off the 5 to 15%. So one, I'm a Republican. I voted for Republicans, Republican presidents, no less than 4 times in my life, maybe 6, I think. I forget the number exactly, right? Far more than I voted for Democrats, right? For Democrat presidents, right? And here's the thing. We care, like Republicans, a lot of them care about family values. Andrew Yang is an incredibly good family values candidate. And the reason why is he doesn't even need to tell anybody he's a family values candidate. He's living it, right? He's got a spouse that he loves. He's got children he loves. It's very genuine. If you start learning about Yang, it ain't going to be long before somebody asks him about his family, and he's going to say that he misses his family, and then you're going to Google what his family looks like, and you're going to tell that his care for that family is genuine, and he takes his role as a spouse very, very genuinely, right? And frankly, number one reason I won't vote for Trump, right? Trump broke his vow to at least 2 spouses. He promised to love them for life and be with them for life, and he broke that promise, right? That vow is the number one thing in my life on this earth. Like, nothing breaks my vow. And anybody who broke their vow to the person they love the most in this life, you think for 1 second they're going to keep a promise to you? Certainly not, right? And that's the issue, right? So, family values. Just Yang needs to keep being Yang. He is a family values candidate, a powerful one, right? The other thing is American hustle, and Yang. And the good thing is he's already doing this stuff. Yang is definitely headed in the right direction, and I think Yang is not falling for this David Dole nonsense of you can win the 2020 election with Dems, non-voters, and independents. That's crazy talk, man. You will get slaughtered, right? Because that's what they thought was going to win 2016, and 2020 is going to be a lot harder to beat Trump than it was in 2016. A lot harder, right? So the reality is, you've got to do your to do your thing. The other thing is American hustle, right? You got to show people that you can actually accomplish things in the real world. I think more and more people don't care about politics. They want to Yang is an American tech entrepreneur. He delivered in the real world, in the business world, and that is incredibly important, right? That is powerful. Republicans respect that. They respect that. The other thing is Yang speaks the truth, and Republicans do care about that. I have to admit, there's a ton of Republicans who are like, oh, yeah, okay, honesty is negotiable now for the presidency. We're all new to this, but okay, we don't really need a candidate who tells the truth, right? But there's definitely 5 to 15% of Republicans who are like, and I'm talking out of the 50% of Americans, and that's pretty much where it's at. 50. If you cut in America in half and say, okay, 50% are Democrats, 50% are Republicans, and I think it's pretty close to that, right? 15% of that 50, right? So 35 and 15, right? 15% of all Americans who are Republican, they care about honesty. And Yang, you could see it. He doesn't have to look up and do a whole bunch of lying. He just tells the truth, right? And I think that will really help him. So the good thing is he's already heading in the right direction. Yang is absolutely the person to beat Trump. But it is absolutely critical, and I am requesting this of Andrew Yang and absolutely requesting it of his team. Understand, you have got to pare off votes from Trump. And here's the kicker, right? When you get a Trump voter, it is devastating, right? When you take a Trump voter, somebody who voted for him in 2016, and bring them over to yours, that's a big swing, right? When you bring a voter in who didn't vote before, right, you're not taking a vote away from Trump and giving it to yourself. That is a full 2-point swing when you do a Trump conversion. It's incredibly important, right? That is my opinion. I think what David Dole said, even though he's a smart, respectable guy, was 100% wrong, right? And now, I'm saying he's wrong. Am I wrong? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your opinion. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.